Hello guys, Fish767 here. Hopefully you can see this okay. I'm going to try and make it work, but I've got a little bit of glare. So, today we're going to take a look at Geth, Lord of the Vault as a commander deck. This deck is about $60, maybe $65 at the time that I made it. I will have a deck list in the description if you want to follow along, and we'll get right into it. So Geth, Lord of the Vault is a 6-drop, 5/5 legendary zombie. He has Intimidate, which means it can only be blocked by artifact creatures and creatures that share a color with it, so in this case that'll be black. You can pay X and a black and put target artifact or creature card with converted mana cost X from an opponent's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control tapped, and then they will put the top X cards of their library into their graveyard. So this deck is super mana hungry. We're going to need a lot of mana to use his second ability, preferably more than once and on the end of one of our opponent's turns or in response to them putting something on the top, because that's what most of the best tutors do, and I'm starting to see them come up in my playgroup. So this card's really good for dealing with that. We're playing a control version of the deck, so we won't have too much trouble with things that hit the battlefield as long as they're creatures. If they're artifacts or enchantments, we have no way to deal with them, so it's important to make sure to have at least a little bit of hand disruption, which we have enough to stop them if they go search for something important. We have enough for that. So I'll get right into it. We'll start with the ramp, and then hopefully I can go through and tell you how we win and everything. So we have Soul Ring, Wayfarer's Bauble, Mind Stone, Prismatic Lens, Worn Power Stone, Skittering Surveyor, and Pilgrim's Eye. They both go get us a land from our deck. In this case, they're going to be swamps. They put it into our hand. They're creatures, so we have a couple ways to recur them, not too many, and they make good blockers, especially since we only run 8 creatures in the deck, not including our commander. We have Hedron Archive, Thran Dynamo, Black Market, which will give us black mana and more as we kill more things. This deck has a ton of removal, so this card's super important, especially for activating Geth's ability, but the mana goes away at the end of the turn, and we only get it for our turn, so it's important to use it up. Then we have Dreamstone Hedron, which ends our ramp. So now we're going to get into card advantage. Now this isn't all the card advantage in the deck, but this is just our direct ways to draw cards. So Night's Whisper, draw 2, lose 2. Painful Lesson, draw 2, lose 2. Live Fast, draw 2, lose 2, get 2 energy. Read the Bones, scry 2, draw 2, lose 2. Succumb to Temptation, draw 2, lose 2. Dark Bargain, look at the top 3, put 2 into our hand, 1 into our graveyard, lose 2. Ambition's Cost, draw 3, lose 3. Moonlight Bargain, look at the top 5, put them into our graveyard unless we pay 2 life for each card that we want to put in our hand. It's an instance, which makes it really nice. Command the Dreadhorde is basically Geth's ability, but on steroids. So we're going to choose any number of target creature and or planeswalker cards in graveyards, and it deals damage to us equal to the total converted mana cost of those cards, and we put them onto the battlefield under our control. So this is a really nice version of Geth's ability since it's only 6 of mana and we get to reanimate everything. The only thing is we don't mill them, which is important because mill is probably going to be one of our our easiest ways to win the game besides damage. But it's a nice thing, and I'll come back to it because it does have some synergy with a couple other cards in the deck. Then we have Bolsa Citadel, which is our most important card in the deck, I'd say, because we need, as a control deck, we're going one-on-one for most of our cards, so we play a removal spell, we get rid of 1 card. We need this card advantage that Bolsa Citadel provides, and it's really useful in that sense, not to mention its tap ability. We sack 10 permanents, maybe those that we've reanimated, and each opponent loses 10 life, and this is really nice. So it's a 6-drop legendary artifact. We may look at the top card of our library anytime. We may play the top card of our library. If we cast a spell this way, we pay life equal to its converted mana cost, and we don't pay its mana. So that's what makes that card so good. And another card that works really well with it is Scheming Symmetry. Choose 2 target players. Each of them searches their library for a card, shelves their library, and puts that card on top of it. And with Geth, we can mill our opponent's card, and with Bolsa Citadel, we can play ours. So this should be a pretty much we win the game. Very close to that, at least. If we cast it, probably grab Command the Dreadhorde. That would be the best thing, unless we need something more specific. So these are our search spells. We have Shred Memory. It can either exile cards from the graveyard, or we can transmute it, which means we discard it, and we go search for a card with converted mana cost 2 and put it into our hand. There's a couple cards we can get with this. The best ones gain us life or draw us cards. Razaketh's Right has cycling, or we can search our library for a card, put it into our hand. Final Parting, we search for 2 cards, 1 into our hand, 1 into our graveyard, then shuffle our library. Most of these shuffle afterwards, but it's pretty nice, at least the Final Parting. Brain Spoil destroys a creature, it can't be regenerated, or we can transmute it to grab a 5-drop, which will probably be one of these search spells, or a black market. Dimir House Guard is a really nice card in the deck because of all the utility that it has. And I'll get into why it's so good with the next couple cards. So it's a creature, first of all, which is what gives it all the utility. And it's a 4-drop. If we wanted to cast it, it's a 2/3. It has Fear. You can sack a creature, regenerate it, or we can transmute it, which is what we're going to be doing most of the time. And it grabs a 4-drop, and that's so important because grabbing a 4-drop lets us get. Let's see here. Oh, I have it after this. Lets us get Masterminds Acquisition, which lets us grab any card from our deck and put it into our hand, and Diabolic Tutor, both of which are really nice, and we can use the Dimir House Guard to get them. And Palace Siege will get us the Dimir House Guard every turn. So when it comes into the battlefield, we choose Khans or Dragons. We'll choose Khans most of the time. Sometimes Dragons is the better option. Depends on how low of life you are. Khan says at the beginning of your upkeep, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. In this case, we're going to be picking Dimir House Guard most of the time. Or we can pick Dragons at the beginning of your upkeep. Each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. So Dimir House Guard just works so well in the deck because you can go grab so many things that's important. And with the Palace Siege, we can get him back, and that means that we can keep on grabbing search spells and keep going through the deck and thinning it out and getting exactly what we need in our hand when we need it. And that's why he's one of the best cards in the deck. Not the best card, but one of them. Then we have our utility artifacts. We got Spellbook, no max hand size. We're a control deck. We don't need to remove everything, though, so it's nice. Altar the Brood, it mills them, gives us more use for Geth. Elixir of Immortality shuffles our graveyard into our deck. This is really nice since most of our cards are spells. We're going to want to reuse them, otherwise we run out of gas too quickly. Mer Retriever gets us back the Elixir, and it works with the Palace Siege to get us back the Elixir. Now, Prototype Portal is really nice. So it's a 4-drop artifact. We cast it. When it enters the battlefield, we may exile an artifact card from our hand, pay X, tap it, put a token that's a copy of the exile card onto the battlefield, where X is that the converted mana cost of that card. So the best cards to use with this are Sun Droplet or Demon's Horn. Sun Droplet says whenever we're dealt damage, we put that many charge counters on it. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, we may remove a charge counter from it. If we do, we gain 1 life. Command the Dreadhorde deals us damage. It's not a loss of life, so that works really well with Sun Droplet. And then Demon's Horn says whenever a player casts a black spell, you may gain 1 life. And since this deck is mono black, that's really nice. We need the life gain because, like I said, Bolsa Citadel is one of the most important cards in the deck. So if we don't have the life gain, we're going to die. Prototype Portal on a Demon's Horn can get really out of hand because at that point we can gain like 7 life per spell was the highest that I had it, and so I got up to 140 life pretty quickly. Now a big portion of that was thanks to Synchro Manager because one of my opponents drew their entire deck out and then discarded 23 cards, and so I gained 3 times that much life, and you know, you do the math there, 69, I actually gained 75, but anyway, it was a ton of life. So Prototype Portal works really well with these, especially Sun Droplet if you can do it. So that's why that's in there. Then we have Oracle's Vault, which is basically card draw on an artifact. Pay 2, tap it, exile the top card of your library. Until the end of turn, you may play that card. Put a counter on Oracle's Vault. Tap it, exile the top card of your library. Until the end of turn, you may play that card without paying its mana cost. You can only do that if there are 3 or more counters on it. And those have to be brick counters. They can't just be charge counters or anything. We have Malevolent Awakening, a 3-drop enchantment. You pay 3, sack a creature, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. We don't run that many creatures, and so it's not that useful. But say your opponent's going to flicker one of the things that we stole from their graveyard. Well, if they do that, it comes back into play under their control. We don't want that to happen, so we can just sack it away and get back, say, a Pilgrim's Eye or something that's in our graveyard. Blood Reckoning, 4-drop, whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, that creature's controlling loses a life. There are better versions that have been printed more recently, but this is the best one that I could find in my own collection, and so I like it. It's a nice card. If you want to upgrade to one of the ones that also gains you a life, do so. I think that's Raven's Revenge or something like that. So do that if you can. Synchro Manager is a 4-drop, 3/3 flying vampire, and vampire is a weird creature type, so having it on this card could be bad because there's lots of cards out there, especially vampires, that say gain control of target vampire or make something a vampire and steal it. You know, there's Captivating Vampire, and then there's this red-black one that can even be somebody's commander, so just beware that this card could backfire on you. But it says flying, whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, you may gain 3 life, which we're going to be doing a lot of, and whenever an opponent discards a card, you may gain 3 life, and both of those are really good effects. Then Entomber Exarch as a dual, it serves 2 purposes, basically. It's a 4-drop 2/2 cleric. When it enters the battlefield, choose one. You can return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand, which will most often be Synchro Manager or Dimir House Guard. Or you can have target opponent reveal their hand, choose a non-creature card from it, and that player discards a card. And both of those effects are things that we want to do in this deck. Then we have Cabal Therapy. We name an all-in card. Target player reveals his or her hand and discards all cards with that name, and it has flashback, sack a creature. This is in here mostly because I've finally figured out what everybody's playing. I know what their decks are, so I can say, I know that this is a key piece of the combo that you need. I'm going to make you discard it. And Cabal Therapy is pretty good for doing that. Nightmare Void, target player reveals his or her hand, choose a card from it. It doesn't even have to be non-land. There's no restrictions on it. You just choose a card. That player discards that card. It has Dredge 2, which means instead of drawing a card, we can put the top 2 from our deck into our graveyard and put this from our graveyard into our hand. And having a reoccurring piece of hand disruption is so important, especially the farther up you get in the tiers of Commander, because eventually you're going to be dealing with cards that go grab an instant and put it on the top of the deck or something. And normally you can't deal with that, but Geth is pretty good at that. But other times you'll deal with cards that put it into the hand and you'll know what it is, because like Shared Summons, it go grabs 2 creatures, something like that, and you'll be able to disrupt it hopefully most of the time. Now, Shared Summons is an instant, the other cards put it on the top of the deck, so they're harder to interact with, but there will be times when this card's so important. Okay, so now we're into the removal. Snuff Out, a 4-drop instant. If you control a swamp, you may pay 4 life instead of its mana cost. Destroy target non-black creature. It can't be regenerated. Tragic Slip, target creature gets -1/-1 until the end of turn. Or, if a creature died this turn, it gets -13/-13 instead. Defile, target creature gets -1/-1 for each swamp we control. Dismember, we can pay 4 life and 1 mana rather than pay 1 and 2 black. It's an instant. A target creature gets -5/-5 until the end of turn. Price of Fame, it costs 2 less to cast if it destroys, or if it targets a legendary creature, It's a 4-drop instant, destroy target creature, surveil 2. Really nice card. Terror, destroy target non-artifact, non-black creature, can't be regenerated. Liliana's Triumph, each opponent sacrifices a creature. If you control Liliana Planeswalker, each opponent also discards a card. We don't, but it's a nice instant to have anyway. Murder, destroy target creature. Reckless Spite, destroy 2 target non-black creatures, you lose 5 life. Eidblight's Ending, destroy target non-elf creature. Mob, it has Convoke, destroy target creature. Force of Despair, so these are our board wipes. If it's not your turn, you may exile a black card from your hand rather than pay the spell's mana cost. Destroy all creatures that entered the battlefield this turn, which is a really nice one-sided board wipe, or it can be. And it's really good against that commander that makes egg tokens, and then when they get rid of the eggs, they bring out big creatures. Most of the time they'll go off on 1 turn with that, and then you just play that, and then they're like, oh, well, I don't have a board anymore. So it's nice. We have Extinction Event. It's a 4-drop sorcery. Choose odd or even. Exile each creature with converted mana cost of the chosen value. 0 is even. Most of our deck has even CMC creatures, so if we can do it against odd CMC creatures, that's really good. I'm not sure if that'll end up working out. The higher that, like, most really powerful creatures stop at 7 most of the time. Now, if you go beyond 7, you're either looking at something that's jank, or it's so good that it's really stupid most of the time. But I'd say most really good creatures are at 6 or 7, so those are what you have to look for. There will probably be some, though, where I'm wrong. I know that there's good 4-drops and stuff, but you just have to be base it on the board state. It's really nice, though, because it hits in Rockwool and stuff like that. At least I think it does. I'm not 100% sure. Then we have Mutilate. 4-drop, all creatures get -1/-1 for each swamp you control. Love that card. Crux of Fate. Choose one, destroy all dragons, or destroy all non-dragons. We'll probably be picking non-dragons most of the time. And then we have 2 creature-based mass board wipe spells, which is nice because we can bring them back with Palace Siege. So, Massacre Girl, 5-drop legendary human assassin, 4/4 menace. When it enters the battlefield, each other creature gets -1/-1 until the end of turn. Whenever another creature dies this turn, each creature other than Massacre Girl gets -1/-1, which will usually board wipe. Deathbringer Regent, 7-drop, 5/6 flyer. When it enters the battlefield, if you cast it from your hand and there are 5 or more other creatures on the battlefield, destroy all other creatures. And he's really nice. So now we're into our lands. We have Myriad Landscape and Cabal Stronghold. Both of them kind of ramp us. Witch's Cottage is a swamp on top of being able to put a creature from our graveyard on the top of our deck, which is really nice. Bajuka Bog exiles a graveyard, which we don't normally want to do, but sometimes we will have to. Detection Tower gets rid of hexproof from our opponents and their creatures, which makes it nice because then we can blow them up. And then we have, I believe it was 33 swamps. I'm going to double check. Yes, it's 33 swamps. And that's the deck. We run heavy on mana because, like I said, we need the mana to do Geth's ability. Main ways of winning are either milling them out with Geth, reanimating their stuff and slapping them with it, or Geth just does it on his own eventually. Because Intimidate's just hard to stop. In my playgroup, I don't see black creatures very often, and if I do, they're like Yarok, where they're a commander, or maybe a utility card. Like Reassembling Skeleton, you might see a couple times. Like, I'm the only person that really plays it in my playgroup, but there are some black creatures that I see in my playgroup, but I don't see enough for Geth to not get through. Like, most of the time, Geth is unblockable, except for artifacts. But those are kind of rare. So the deck, it works. Like, I've played a couple games with it. It works pretty well if you can get Bolsa Citadel down early. I've gotten it down as early as turn 4. I think that that's the fastest that you're going to be able to get it down without really, like, if you want to keep a good hand and then also get Bolsa Citadel down, I think turn 4 is the fastest that you can do it. And that's really good. Not even joking. Like, I had Bolsa Citadel up until the end of the game, and then I paid a good 20 mana to go get it back out and put it on the battlefield. In case you're wondering how I did that, I did Transmute Dimir House Guard, grab Search Spell, use Search Spell to get Elixir of Immortality, use Elixir of Immortality to shuffle my graveyard into my deck, use another Search Spell to get Bolsa Citadel out, and then to get it from my deck into my hand and then play it. So that was like a good 20-some mana, but I had enough and then still had 10 mana left over, so I'm like, may as well get it back on the battlefield because I need it. So you can do stupid stuff with this deck. You'll generate a ton of mana, and that's not a joke. So if you want to actually, because there's no really good like infinite win con or anything like that. So if you want to put that in, the best one is Reassembling Skeleton, Sifter of Skulls, Pitiless Plunder, some Sack Outlet, which can be Dimir House Guard, and that works in with everything else because that's probably one of the best cards in the deck. Not the best card, but one of them. And you can use that to make infinite tokens, infinite mana, which is really good with Geth. And you'll have infinite artifacts, infinite death triggers, so if you wanted to put in like a Blood Artist or a Zulaport Cutthroat, something like that, you could. And you'll also have infinite ETB effects, so if you wanted to use a card like, if you wanted to change it, you could do Oathsworn Vampire, and what is it? Bontu's Monument, which will actually give you an extra mana each time that you do it, and on top of that, it will drain them an infinite amount while making the Oathsworn Vampire cost less, but there is a caveat to that. You can't do it at instant speed. You do cast the Oathsworn Vampire, so it could be countered and ruin your early game casts of it, and it says you have to gain life that turn in order to do it. So there are some benefits and some downsides to doing that, and then there's other ways to do it too if you wanted to, like Open the Graves and Embalmer's Tools, which would let you tap your zombies to mill for an infinite amount if you did it, and make Reassembling Skeleton only cost 1 black to do it, which means that you could cut out the Pitiless Plunderer completely and only run, you'd need the Pitiless Plunderer, you cut out the Sifter of Skulls. So it depends on how you want to set it up. Just toss in an infinite combo. If you do, take out some of the, take out Terror, which is destroy target non-artifact, non-black creature. Take out stuff like that has the restrictions on it. Or you could probably remove some of the utility artifacts and utility enchantments and stuff like that, because they're really there for the fringe cases. And you won't be seeing them most of the time, actually, because we have so much go search out this card, draw these cards, and you'll have to discard at the end of turn, stuff like that. You won't see the utility enchantments very often, and when you do, it's like you just can get rid of them. There's so much card advantage in this deck. I'm not even joking. And it's really fun to play, actually, as far as things go. And I actually got to do the Scheming Symmetry thing one time where I went and grabbed something and then my opponent milled the card, and it was so funny. That's what I really wanted this deck to do, is to have the fun interactions like that. But because Geth is so cheap, he's only $1, and he's actually really fun to play with. I thought this would be a good deck to put together. Like I said, it's only $60 because the majority of it's just removal, and we have so much of that the cost of any removal spell has dropped by enough to make this deck pretty much viable. I'm sure that there's a lot of other good removal pieces that I don't have in here that you could put in. Maybe a Collective Brutality, stuff like that. If you wanted to try it, there's definitely ways to put it in. Even putting in a big creature like, what is it? the giant that makes zombies, Grave Titan, that you could put in Grave Titan and other stuff like that. You could even do Zombie Tribal. I tried it. It was kind of wonky. It was gonna work. It was gonna work, but I was like, this is weird to do, and I didn't want to mess with it. So, but it is possible to do Zombie Tribal if you wanted to go with that route, but it would be more expensive. Only by a little bit though, because zombies are underappreciated in the Magic community. But if you wanted to do that, I can have another deck built. Just let me know in the description, because that would be a fun deck. I'll probably do it, but I'm not sure. So thank you guys for watching. I'll see y'all in the next video. I have a stack of commanders that I'm trying to build a deck around. Actually, let me go get that. To show you guys, I want to get a deck built for each of these commanders. Not all of these are commander cards, but not all of these are commanders, but the majority of these are just random commanders, and I want to build decks around them. And so by the end of the year, I want to have a deck for each of these, but I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do it. And I definitely won't be able to keep them all built at the same time, but I can have them archived on MTG Goldfish and stuff like that. So I'd love to be able to do that, and that's my goal for by the end of the year. But some of them are so hard to build, like Silvos. Let me show you Silvos. Silvos, he doesn't fit into anything. Like, it's so hard to build a deck around him. He's got trample, you can regenerate him, but he's in mono green, and so it's hard to do anything with him because all your infect stuff's in black, except for one artifact. And most of, I don't want to build just an artifact and like an equipment deck around him, because there's no card draw then if I do that. If I at least go creatures, I can have card draw. So Silvos is just hard to build around, and I don't know what I'm going to do with him. I've been thinking of an elf, mono-green elf tribal with Silvos as the commander for it, and that's probably what I'm going to end up doing, but it's like, it's not even about Silvos then, it's just about the elves, and Silvos is kind of there. So cards like Silvos I don't know what to do with. But he's a good creature, 6 mana, get an 8/5 trample, which is already a stupid good card, and then you can pay 1 to regenerate him, and he's always there in your opening hand. So Silvos is just such a good card, but there's nothing to do with him. He doesn't have any good abilities. It's hard to build around because you could literally do anything. So I'm just going to do elves, and we're going to see how that deck goes. I think it'll be fun, though, because elves with a big stompy dude is really nice, especially certain elves. There's, I don't know, there's an elf that makes every creature block that elf, and he's a 1-drop, and so I love that elf, because you get him down early, nobody's going to waste removal on a 1-drop, and then you just swing in, you get Silvos through, and if you pump Silvos just a little bit by 3, he becomes a 2-shot. So Silvos is really fun as far as that goes, but he's hard to build around. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye.